Hi, my name's Nathaniel and I'm a partner here at M Sterling. We deal with all manner of serious tax problems on behalf of our clients, such as appeals to tax tribunal, disclosure reports, COP9 investigations, things like that. So if you have any questions with regards to your situation specifically, before we get into this video, then by all means give us a phone call, drop us an email. You can see our details listed there, so please feel free. Our initial advice is always free, so you've got nothing to lose. With regards to this video, we're going to be looking at how to deal with a HMRC tax investigation, and I can only apologise for the quality of the sound. I'm actually recording this video on one of our laptops here in the office, so not going to be the best quality, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll manage to get the information across effectively. So who's this video for? So if you have a tax investigation yourself, if someone close to you has an investigation, or confused about what to do next, and you're looking for a bit of direction, then you'll certainly get a lot from this. However, if you've committed deliberate tax fraud, then you're not going to get much from this video. We can certainly help you if you fall into that category, and we can do things like guarantee immunity from prosecution, but this video is not going to help you specifically. So you're better off sort of giving us a phone call or dropping us an email, and we can have a further chat. But okay, let's get to it. So types of investigation then. There are primarily two: civil investigations and criminal investigations. Now, if you're not sure which one you fall into, for the purposes of this video, we're going to say that it's not criminal investigation. It's very unlikely that you could have a criminal tax investigation and not be aware of it. So for the purposes of trying to help the most people possible, then we'll look at civil investigations in this video. So why me? Why me is a question that we get asked a lot when clients call up for the first time and they want to know, why has HMRC chosen to investigate me specifically? So there are a few reasons. It could be completely random. HMRC issue a number of random compliance checks on businesses and individuals across the UK every year. However, due to the number that they conduct, it's very unlikely that you're subject to one of those. It could be that you have a history of non-compliance. So, for example, late filing of tax returns, making late payments on account, that type of thing. Or it could be, and this is one that we're seeing more and more of, certainly over the last couple of years, is that HMRC has used their artificial intelligence, so their AI, to identify you. So let's expand on that a little bit. HMRC have published numerous articles in the news on this supercomputer they now use to try and identify people who they feel are more likely to have tax irregularities. So this supercomputer tries to cross-reference information from many different sources, such as company's house information, land registry records, with a view to identifying the people who are most likely to have tax irregularities. This information is then passed to a human who can then decide to either investigate further, or obviously if nothing else needs to be done, there's no further action, then they can make that decision themselves. It can also be that HMRC have other unknown information, so unknown to the taxpayer, that is, such as a tip-off or that type of thing, and that's also a possibility. So what can HMRC ask for? We try and split things into two categories: reasonable and desirable. So reasonable information is information that HMRC will ask for, and it could be argued that that is reasonable to request to be able to carry out a thorough investigation. Desirable information, on the other hand, is information that HMRC will no doubt want to have, but to our mind isn't necessarily entitled to request. So reasonable information could be things like business records, sales data, business bank accounts, supplier information. Desirable information, on the other hand, could be things like personal bank account records, family bank account records, personal asset information, what car you drive, that type of thing, or information on holidays, where you go on holiday, who lives with you, living arrangements, things like that. So there's a clear difference there between information that's required and information that's merely desirable. And that's sort of the test we apply really is, is it reasonable? Is it required to carry out the investigation? Now, if it's not, if we don't feel it's required and we don't feel it's reasonable, then we'll request that HMRC issue something called a Schedule 36 notice. Now, a Schedule 36 notice is a formal request for information under the Finance Act. And once HMRC has issued that notice, we can then request that a tribunal and effectively stop them getting that information. But that's why we request that HMRC put things on a formal footing when they request information that we feel they're not particularly entitled to request. The investigative process. This is quite an important slide because it'll give you an idea of the process from start to finish and what the various avenues are in between. So notification, obviously originally you would have received a notification via mail probably telling you that you're subject to a tax investigation. They'll then possibly request that you'll attend an interview at HMRC. Now, this might be over the phone, this may be in person, depending on who's dealing with the case. They'll also request business records, so things like sales invoices, purchase invoices, things like that, as well as other information which they may or may not be entitled to, as we said in the previous slide. Now, after that, they'll then form a conclusion, either by the way of raising an assessment, which is the most likely outcome. They'll probably raise an assessment saying, dear taxpayer, we think as a result of our investigation, you owe X amount in tax. Please pay now. Or they'll say, we've had a look at your records and so forth, and no further action is going to be taken in relation to this matter. As I said, unfortunately, it's usually they usually issue an assessment rather than take no further action. So we suggest, that clients do not attend interviews either over the phone or in person at HMRC unless absolutely necessary. Now, the reason is when people are put on the spot and they feel they need to answer questions, then it's likely that the information they provide is not going to be all that accurate, and that can obviously come back to bite them and harm them when it comes to an appeal situation further down the line, possibly at tax tribunal, for example. We'll also, as we said in the previous slide, try and to the best of our ability stop things like requests for other information that HMRC are not entitled to and purely want on a sort of desirable basis, and that's done by the Schedule 36 notice, as we said. The appeals process then, independent review. This is the process that gets the ball rolling. This is where the caseworker at HMRC who has been dealing with the case passes the case to another HMRC caseworker who has previously had no involvement with the case, with a view to taking a new look at things and coming up with their own conclusion. Now, as you can imagine, it's more often the situation that the outcome that the second caseworker comes to, or the assumption that they come to, is in line with the views of the first caseworker. So we really get much joy then at the independent review stage, and that's not where we focus most of our energy in a tax appeal situation. This is where we sort of put most of our energy and most of our resources, is the appeal to tribunal, and this is where we have most of our success. The tribunal appeal takes place over usually 1 or 2 days, the appeal hearing itself, but in the run-up to that, there's a whole process that needs to be followed prior to the actual appeal being heard. Now, the tribunal are completely independent of HMRC. They don't sort of have any horse in the race, they don't sort of care who wins or loses in the case. It doesn't matter to them. or all they're interested in is sort of that justice is served then. As well as the appeal tribunal and alongside the appeal tribunal, we can enter into something called alternate dispute resolution, or ADR. That's where HMRC, us as the representative, the taxpayer, and an independent facilitator all get together, either on a phone call or around a table, and try and sort the problem out before going to tribunal. This can be successful. However, we need to be realistic, and it's unlikely that by having a conversation around the table, things are going to be sorted out. It's already, at this point, it's already been to an independent review, so it should have been sorted by now. And that's why we put most of our efforts and put most of our resources into the appeal, the tribunal appeal itself. So we start to gather information, start to gather evidence, put a case together, along with any guidance you can provide us, any information, any insight into the business, how this assessment by HMRC has come about, anything we can sort of come up with to refute that, and then we present that on the day at the tribunal hearing, so at the first tier tax tribunal. That's usually a 1 or 2 day hearing, and in the room you'll probably have at least 2 or 3 people sort of sitting behind the bench, so a judge and possibly 2 lay people, as well as the appellant. So in this case it would be us representing the taxpayer and HMRC representing their interests. We can also call witnesses if we feel necessary, and HMRC also have the option to call witnesses. The appeal hearing isn't something that the taxpayer needs to be involved in directly. We can undertake the whole appeal process on the taxpayer's behalf, and it can be a lot less painful or practically painless when an advisor, a specialist advisor such as TM Sterling is involved, because it means that they're well aware of the process, they know exactly what to expect, and they know the best sort of way to approach things. So what next then? Don't read the horror stories online. You'll find no end of horror stories that you can find just by doing a quick sort of Google search. Don't take advice from family or friends unless, of course, they have a specialist experience in this area. And don't ignore HMRC's letters. They're not going away. It needs to be dealt with. It's just a case of how you deal with that and what procedures you use to challenge the decision. So what you want to do is get professional representation, whether it be someone like TM Sterling or someone else. Start to compile relevant information that you feel will help you in the case. Be honest with yourself as far as what's going on. Be honest with your representative. It'll always be better that way. It's not a nice situation when things can get sort of further and further down the line, and then all of a sudden this piece of information comes to light that the advisor didn't previously know. It sort of weakens the case dramatically. So it's always best to be open and honest from the start, and always make sure you keep copies of correspondence. Technically, it's possible to get copies of correspondence from HMRC at any point, but it's always better to have that information to hand as and when you need it. So if you have any questions, of course, please feel free to give us a ring. We always like talking to people about their their tax problems, how we can look at sorting that out. You can drop us an email, cases@tmsterling.co.uk. You can send us, call us, 01656 724 806. Our initial consultations are always free and, of course, are always confidential. We cover things like, as I said previously, VAT investigations, tribunal appeals, COP9 disclosures, lots and lots of different tax, serious tax problems, tax irregularities. So if you think you need to speak to someone with regards to your case specifically, please, get in touch. You've nothing to lose. So thanks for watching the video, and we look forward to hearing from you.